everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Innovate Finance, our podcast series where we speak to industry leaders on financial innovation and fintech. Our podcasts are available on Spotify, Apple Music, and Google Podcasts. My name is Tin Chambers, CFO at Innovate Finance, and today I'm delighted to be joined by James Codling, Managing Partner of Volution. James has a background in banking and private equity and a lifelong passion for technology. Volution is an early-stage venture fund backing ambitious UK-based fintech and SaaS businesses ready to accelerate their growth to Series B and beyond. So, hello, James, and welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
That's all right.
James, so to start with, tell me a bit about your background and your role at Volution.
Yes, of course. So by background, I originally trained as an electronic and software engineer many years ago. I did a master's in electronic and electrical engineering and software engineering at the University of Birmingham. And I was all set to go into engineering at that time, but I got lured into the city in the late 90s, early 2000s, at the top of the telecoms bubble, or the dot-com bubble as it was known then. And I joined a firm called JP Morgan, originally focusing on financing telecoms companies who were at that time, we were doing a lot of cable fundings, we were doing a lot of 3G rollout. And I think, as you probably know, that market crashed in the early 2000s as a result of the collapse of the dot-com bubble. And I started to move into doing private equity work, which I did for quite a number of years for JP Morgan in London and also in Hong Kong, before I moved into a career in private equity, joining a upper mid-market buyout house called Montague in, I think, 2006. And I did that for a few years. And that was an interesting journey for me, but I never was able really to shake off the love of technology that I've always had. And while I was at Montague, I was doing a little bit of angel investing, so investing in some relatively early stage UK companies. And I thought, this is really quite exciting. The UK's doing some really good things in tech, and particularly in sectors that I knew a bit about, so financial services, enterprise SaaS. And I decided to leave my career then and go off and set up my own venture business, which I did it's actually 10 years ago.
Yesterday,
10 years ago yesterday, I left to embark on this venture journey. I was talking to my family about it the other day. It's been an interesting 10 years, or an interesting decade.
I'm sure there's no regrets for that.
No regrets. No,
No
not
regrets.
at all. No, it's a space that I love. It's a very different market to private equity, the venture space here in the UK. It's a lot more collaborative, a lot more, I suppose, satisfying in terms of being able to see outcomes, or the outcome of your work more directly translate into success. It's a lot riskier, of course, but the culture and around venture in the UK is very different to the culture in private equity, and it's a space that myself and a lot of people love. And I think, what we're trying to do at Volution is really get behind some of the UK's fintech and SaaS success stories and really help them grow and scale to get to where they can be. So it's very satisfying in that regard. So I'm not going to pretend it's all been plain sailing over the past 10 years, but it's been a very interesting time to be involved in.
Very interesting and very rewarding, I'm sure.
Yes, indeed.
Great.
So that's my background at Volution. I'm the managing partner of Volution. So I'm responsible for both, I suppose, everything to do with ourselves as an institution, but also I do transactions. So I work on my own deals and help and support our portfolio, with everything that they've got going on.
I see. So James, according to our investment reports, UK fintech investment in 2022 decreased only 8% compared to 2021, which is, it's a much smaller decrease than the global average. So what do you think about 2023? What's your view? And then what's your view on the current investment landscape?
Yeah, I think the UK is rather blessed to some extent in terms of we've genuinely created an ecosystem around supporting these companies, and I'll talk a bit more about it in a minute in terms of where a lot of that investment's gone. But I think that there's, compared to when I started in venture, there is a much more developed and sophisticated network out there and able to fund and support early stage UK tech. The UK is very strong, as you know, in particularly fintech, but also biotech and life science, particularly out of some of the universities. SaaS, we've been very successful in developing, and we're starting to do good things in deep tech and AI. I think 2023 hopefully will be a bit of a watershed moment for venture. I think we've had a relatively uninterrupted growth in the VC funding landscape over the last sort of 10, 12, 13 years. And some of that got frothy, a little bit over the top. I think a lot of people would say in 2021, and we saw valuations and terms on deals getting stretched and stretched and stretched. And I think that the market certainly saw a contraction in that in 2022. I suspect in 2022, although volumes were down, I suspect there was a lot of people funding to support their existing portfolios. I suspect a lot of money is being put into existing portfolios to help them get through to break even and profitability, with a view to riding out the market and then regrouping and seeing where we go from there. I hope that 2023 will be I suppose the time when venture starts focusing again in a more sensible way on new deal flow and actually new deals coming back to or coming to market, and actually those deals getting funded. And but I think there's going to be a bit of pain on the way. I suspect there will be, and a lot of people are saying this, that 2021 was the end of the excess. 2022 has been shoring up and supporting those that will make it. I suspect 2023 there will be a shakeout in companies that won't make it, not actually getting there, and venture portfolios trying to manage through that, hopefully towards the back end of the year, where we see a return to good levels of investing activity and new deal flow. But I think the heyday of 2021 valuations has gone for the foreseeable future. Well, hopefully. I think it makes the UK a much more interesting and attractive place to invest at the minute.
Okay, great. So you talk about your passion for the technology and then your passion for this being an entrepreneur and supporting them through their journey. So tell us a bit more about how you and Volution are trying to do that to support the entrepreneur during their journey.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And the whole, I suppose, vision for Volution from the outset was really to bring together people who had skills and expertise in having built and exited fintech and SaaS companies to come back into the market and help support the next generation of fintech and SaaS success stories here in the UK. So Volution's heart, although people like myself have an investment background, but also a technology background in my case, but all the team have had relevant skill sets within fintech and within SaaS, having been involved in and scaled and exited those type of businesses. And what we try to do at Volution, and I'll talk a little bit more about where we sit in the market, but what we try to do at Volution is really bring that more operational mindset to the companies that we invest in, and try and help them. And it always strikes me, it's a little bit, I don't think it should be surprising, but it always does surprise me that a lot of the companies that we look at, and ultimately the ones that we back, they're all struggling with very similar things. They could be operating in completely different markets. They've all got similar business models, but they could be operating in completely different markets, but they all seem to struggle with the same scale challenges. And that could be go to market. It could be that they are lacking in terms of partnerships, or could be that they haven't found their ideal customer profile. It could be that there are leadership holes within their team that need supporting and filling. And I think the thing that we can do is, having been through it warts and all and founded and grown and scaled our own businesses, that we can actually be there to help them support and guide, both internally with the team members, but we also have quite a well-developed entrepreneur in residence program as well, where we can bring in people who have those skill sets to help those companies and help them to understand where it is that they might need to focus. In terms of where we invest, we are backing companies that already have their first institutional check. So we are backing companies who are either scaling from Series A to Series B, or even Series B to Series C. And I can talk about that in a minute, Tim, but that's where we see the biggest funding challenge for the UK at the minute, which is we think there's going to be a lot of missed opportunity in the UK, particularly with what's been going on in the venture market over the last 18 months, if funding gaps between A and B and C aren't addressed.
Yes. So this is what basically makes you different from others in a similar space. You genuinely try to help the entrepreneur with their operation matters and difficulties, not just here's the money, there you go. You help them through their journey.
Yeah, I think we have quite a good understanding of what it is and what it takes to scale a successful fintech or SaaS business here in the UK. So, for example, one of our partners, Steve Lemon, co-founded a business called Currency Cloud, which sold to Visa at the back end of 2021. Grew it from a complete startup to a very sizable business, and was responsible for a large part of their go-to-market strategy, but also their partnership strategy. So I think having that kind of level of experience within the team helps us to I suppose identify with those founders and CEOs the challenges that they're going through and being able to support. I think the other thing that differentiates us is where we invest. So we do not believe in the funding silos that the UK has built around venture. So we do not believe in typically seed, Series A, Series B, Series C funding. I'm not saying that's not right. There's a whole market that's being built on it. But I think where we see challenges for companies is that journey, particularly from Series A to Series B and often Series B to Series C, where the market kind of tends to not give up is the wrong expression, but the market is not functional to support those companies that might need more capital within that funding journey, and particularly not external third-party capital. So where we are looking for companies that are very clearly able to demonstrate the metrics that can get them, say, from Series A to Series B, but actually they might need another £5-6 million to get them there, and that is often a stretch for their existing institutional investors to be able to provide all that capital. And companies might go to venture debt. They will probably try and tap up their existing institutional investors, maybe their angel investors, but the reality is what they often need at that point in time is somebody with a fresh pair of eyes to come in and look at doing a new round, which is where we come in and where we provide capital. And there are very few people doing it in our space. In fact, we don't know of anyone else really who is doing it.
No, I was thinking the same. Yeah, I don't think there is anyone, because a lot of people usually following what you said, seed, and then there's Series A, Series B, and C, and it is really very difficult to fundraise between those series. So
yeah,
it's very interesting.
It's the biggest execution risk for a founder. The way I always think about it is, as a founder, you go and you raise your seed round, which is great, and you get a bit of product market fit, MVP. You then get to say $1 million of ARR. You go and raise a bit of institutional money, and at that point, you think, not everyone, but a lot of people think, oh, I'm a rock star now. I've got a wonderful VC on my cap table, or a couple of VCs, and this is going to be a very easy journey now to get to Series B.
Yeah.
The reality is the journey to Series B, you've got to 10x, and you've got to be demonstrating the KPIs that will attract a Series B investor. And I think a lot of founders don't really understand that at the outset of that Series A to B journey. And I think, a 1 billion ARR company is still a very, very, very young company, and there is a hell of a lot of execution risk on that way to Series B. And often it will just be a case of you need a bit more time. You might need a bit more money. You might have suddenly found that your product market fit wasn't working in a certain area, but actually in another area it is. And you then need capital to grow and scale that part. So there's all kinds of reasons why on that journey it's not linear and it's a bit bumpy. But there are next to no funding options for founders during that transition phase. And it's a real problem.
That is true. You don't want to force the founders to rush into things and, take your time, perfect your product before you get to the next stage.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of founders will go to the Series B market, and the Series B market will say, you're not quite ready.
Yeah.
And then they're going, okay, I'm not quite ready, but actually I don't have a huge amount of runway left. So what am I going to do? Who do I go to? Who do I look to get some additional investment from? And that's where we come in.
That's very interesting. So James, you're obviously trying to do something different from other people. So as with any new, thinking idea and opportunities, it comes with the difficulties and risks and the challenges. So do you have any challenges in trying to help these entrepreneurs in their journey this way?
Do we find any challenges?
Yeah,
lots of challenges. We're still a venture investor, so from our perspective, it's still phenomenally risky capital that we're putting to work. I think the one thing that we do benefit from is our companies tend to be slightly later stage, so they tend to be sort of 4 or 5 million of recurring revenue and up to say 20 to 25, where we look to make a first investment. I think although they may have well identified sort of challenges that we can try and help them with, the reality is there is still a lot of execution risk in their plan. And I think the biggest challenge that we have as the UK as a whole is that even if we invest in this sort of bridge round, say between A and B, and we partner up with the existing institutional investors, and maybe we take on a bit more venture debt or whatever it is, there still isn't the depth of capital in that space to provide all the money that those companies require.
See. Okay, so let's talk about slightly different subject. So, we are all living through a cost of living crisis at the moment. So do you have any case study in like some of your company in your portfolio? What are they trying to do to help tackle the crisis? Any example of your portfolio companies doing
that? Yes. So it's a very pertinent topic clearly at the minute. And there's a couple of companies in the portfolio that are putting a particular focus on this. And I suppose it wouldn't be a surprise to you that they are some of our more consumer-facing fintech businesses that we've invested in. The most recent investment that we have made, or one of the most recent investments, the business called Wayhome, have a very unique product for UK first-time buyers, trying to help people get onto the property ladder and do so in spite of, I suppose, rising mortgage rates, which is making it, quite often unaffordable for normal people to get on the housing ladder without huge deposits. And Wayhome have a very innovative product in this space, in that they work with a group of pension funds to buy the property with a first-time buyer. So the first-time buyer ends up owning anywhere between, say, 5 and 15% of the property. The rest is owned by the pension funds, and there's no mortgage product. What it allows people to do is to be able to buy a home up to roughly about 10 times the value of their home. And in return, they pay a rent to the pension fund on the balance that they don't own. So they make it much more accessible, the housing market, a lot more accessible to people who have been previously locked out of owning a property. And they're doing very well. There's a huge ESG angle with them around that. They are Sharia compliant as well, so there are quite a number of reasons why their product is very appealing for large sections of society. Zopa's doing a lot in this space, not only on their own, but with a group of other sort of large UK fintech companies to make banking sort of far more transparent and accessible to people who are struggling with cost of living crisis. And I suspect there will be, as you say, I mean, this is going to becoming an increasing area of focus for a lot of companies, and I think a lot of your members, Thin, I think it will be a huge focus for them over the next couple of years.
Yes, this is going to be also a theme on our IFGS and impact that fintech can do to help out the cost of living crisis. So yes, so you just touched on ESG. So how do you incorporate this ESG into your business model? What do you do at Volution to drive ESG?
Oh, I'm glad you asked then. That's that's going to make my head of growth, Nina, very happy. So we take ESG very seriously at Volution. I think the benefit of being a relatively new fund manager is that we've been able to ingrain, I suppose, ESG at the heart of everything that we do at Volution. And I was very keen from the outset that we make it a sort of a cornerstone of our model, that we have a very coherent but also a policy around ESG that encourages our portfolio to get behind ESG initiatives and drive change. So quite simply, what does that mean? We have a scheme with our portfolio company. So every portfolio company that we back is able to benefit in the upside of our fund through taking a share of what we call our carry, which is the profit share that we as a manager take. And an element of that is driven by how they drive ESG initiatives throughout their firm. So when we make an investment into a company, we effectively sit down with that portfolio company and do an audit of where they sit in terms of environmental, social, and governance factors, and then we give them a rating, which is within sort of well-known industry benchmarks. And then, as through our ownership, we encourage and work with them and help support them to drive change in ESG, and then we do an annual audit of how they are doing. And assuming they attain a certain benchmark within our ownership period, they will qualify for a share of what we call our carbon carry, an ESG carry, which effectively gives them profit share in our business. And we also,
very interesting.
We also as a firm invest some of our carry profit back into carbon offsetting initiatives. Okay. So I think we recognized very early on that the biggest impact that our portfolio has is on server usage. So that's the biggest area of sort of environmental impact that they have. And so for that, we effectively take a share of our carry and we deploy that into offsetting carbon emissions that they might make through their server usage.
A lot that you're doing. So thank you, James. So just a last question. So what is the future for Volution?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting time for us because we're coming to the end of our first fund. We've made 13 investments in that fund. We've exited two of those companies. So we exited Passport to Moody's in 2021. We exited Bright Pearl to Sage in 2021 as well. We're now coming to the end of Fund 1. We are about to start, hopefully, raising for our second fund, which is going to be a large piece of work for myself and all the team over the next months. We're still deploying out of this first fund. So as I said, we made 13 investments. We will probably make at least one, maybe two more into this fund and do quite a few follow-ons into the portfolio. But I'm hoping that the future is bright. I think the thing that we've learned from Fund 1 is that the market for Volution is not getting smaller. The market for Volution is getting quite substantially larger. I think the fundraising journey from A to B, given what's been going on in the market, is going to be increasingly challenging for UK tech companies. And I think my worry is that there aren't people like us around to help support and guide those companies on that journey. So I think, it's a growing market, or it's a growing part of the market. And I think the UK needs to find some quite innovative funding solutions to address that space. We're part of the solution. We're by no means the entirety of the solution, but I think certainly for the foreseeable future, there will be plenty of opportunities for us to deploy our capital into those types of companies, and I think it's quite an interesting time to invest at the minute, given what's been going on in the venture market.
Great. Well, it's an exciting time, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
I think that is all for we got time for. So thank you all for tuning in, and thank you once again to our guest today, James Codling. And thank you all at home for listening. All our previous episodes are available on our website. Join us next time for Coffee with Innovate Finance. So bye for now.